Music lovers, welcome to another episode of the Raaga Room with Deepa Joshi. Ajab Shahar, a name that beguiles us to a place that invites one to an experience, to explore. An experience that piques self-awareness, a mystical place that houses a person who seeks by contemplation unity with forces controlling the universe. Mysticism connects us to a higher order or can be described as being one with the absolute. It could also refer to an ecstatic state of mind of being spiritual. Contemporary cultures have a tendency to look for solutions in indigenous paradigms. From time immemorial, saints, Sufis, gurus propounded the idea of exploring oneself to connect with the divine. Higher consciousness is about remembering what is intrinsic, yet what is also greater than us. This state can increase intuition and connect us with realities beyond our own. It spurs us to live from our hearts and souls in deeper relationship with the world around us. While this comes naturally to some, others cultivate it through prayer, meditation, self-awareness, compassionate selfless service, and/or the art that touches our soul, music. Hazrat Inayat Khan, a professor of musicology, singer, exponent of Saraswati Veena, poet, philosopher, and a pioneer of transmission of Sufism in the West, talks about why music is a divine art. In every art form, we see God. But music is one such where we see God free from all forms and thoughts. Every thought, every word has a form. Every word of poetry forms a picture in our mind. Sound alone does not make any object appear before us, he says. What a beautiful place it must be when these teachings are fused with music. Our acclaimed guest, Shabnam Virmani, who I am so thrilled to be talking to, will take us to this enchanted place with her illustration of music and poetry, and I am so thrilled to be talking to her. Shabnam Virmani, a phenomenal documentary filmmaker and artist, has been exploring the philosophy of Kabir, Shah Latif, and other mystic poets through a deep engagement with their oral folk traditions for close to 2 decades, ever since the riots of Gujarat in 2002 propelled her on this quest. Her inspiration in this poetry has taken the shape of 4 documentary films on Kabir, a digital archive called Ajab Shahar, writing books, organizing urban festivals and rural yatras, singing and performing herself, and infecting students with the challenge of mystic poetry. Her film, Kabira Khada Bazaar Mein, won the Special Jury Prize at the National Film Awards in 2011. She has worked on 2 books, I Saw Myself, Journeys with Shah Latif Bhittai, and Burn Down Your House, Life Lessons from Kabir. The work of the Kabir Project, housed at Srishti, Bangalore, was given the Sadbhavana Award for contributing to interfaith understanding by Shri Morari Bapu and Vishwagram Trust in Gujarat in 2016. It is with great delight that I welcome Shabnam Virmani to the Raaga Room. Namaste, Shabnam. Thank you so much for coming to the Raaga Room, and I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to be talking to you today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And I have to also tell you, like I have said before, that listening to you speak has given me a reason to explore, reflect, and I go into a very beautiful space after I listen to your talk and your music. So it's had a remarkable experience on my mind. So I thank you for that. And I'm so glad that we are having this conversation today.
I'm so happy to be able to connect with you in this Ajab manner on Zoom across the 7 seas.
Yes. So, Shabnam, I feel like the best moments in life happens on chance encounters. Like, for example, when I started Raaga Room, I had absolutely no idea. I did not know what I was doing.
And I was in a music session with my guru, and he was explaining a beautiful morning, just like this one. I had really nice sunlight come through, and he was talking about Rag Bhairav. And he was telling me why it has to be sung in the morning. How does Rag Bhairav signify the progression of the day? And I'm so taken by it. And I said, Omkarji, you should talk about this to people. And he said, this is just a candid conversation. And that's how the thought came about. And I said, why not, talk about things like this and tell people these beautiful things. And so that's how Raaga Room started. Again, it's not about me, but I feel that moments like this come into our life. As much as it is a brand new experience, I feel that we come prepared. Somehow our mind is subconsciously training us to be there in that moment. So what is that moment? How did you come into this space?
I said that's a good question and a deep question. And I'm wondering what aspect of my journey to share with you. So I think, people have asked me many a time, what started you off on the Kabir journeys? And I'm a little bored even now of hearing myself say what was the overt trigger for these journeys. And the overt trigger for these journeys was certainly communal violence in India. I was in Ahmedabad, it was 2002, and there was a lot of hate and divisiveness all around me post Godhra in Gujarat, and there were riots in the city. And I remember feeling then that I don't really understand what makes people so deeply connected to the realm of faith, religion, to this degree. And Kabir's voice started speaking to me in that moment when, he says, Sadho dekho jag borana, and it felt like that. So, I mean, I have said this many a time that this is what set me off on these journeys, but I do know that there are many subterranean narratives, many subconscious, journeys that one has been taking that brings you to a point where some overt trigger brings about transformation. So you may say, you may pin it on that overt trigger, but really it doesn't speak for the years or decades or a lifetime of journeying up to a point that is happening under the surface. And I think under the surface for me, seeking Kabir or this kind of wisdom began much earlier. It began as it begins for many of us who face loss of some kind. I think loss is something that puts you on the path. And those among us who are spiritually and emotionally mature enough, it's not easy to get there, but those among us who are spiritually and emotionally mature, we can at that point look back and thank our sorrows for putting us on the path. In fact, just this morning I was thinking, I'm in the throes of editing a new film series on a Sindhi Sufi poet, Shah Latif Bhetai. And one of the films is about a character called Sassi, who is seeking her beloved Punnu. Like Heer Ranja, their Sohini Mahiwal. This is another epic love legend of the Sindh Punjab region. Sassi is the girl and Punnu is her beloved who has been wrested away from her on the morning of their marriage. And now she's set out into the desert in search of him with nothing, with no goods, no water, no food, no direction, but she is set out because she is woken up to find her beloved is not with her. So it's an allegory for seeking, right? And the title we had given the film was My Sorrow Cracked the Mountain. Okay. And this is a phrase from Shah Latif's poetry in Sindhi. Dungar, which is mountain, Dungar khe dahar pyo. The mountain was ripped apart or cracked by the intensity of Sasi's pain. And I was just thinking of what byline to give it, and I was thinking of the byline that came to my head was the possibilities of pain, you know. And it struck me that my sorrow cracked the mountain has such deep meanings. It means, therefore, that it takes sorrow to crack a mountain. And the mountain could be your hardened sense of self. It could be your ego. It could be your heart that has become cold and hard. It could be your compassion that has frozen for various reasons. And it takes sorrow to crack it. Nothing less than sorrow. So it is that sense of loss that puts us on the path. So I think for me, this journey began when I was 11 years old, when my father died unexpectedly in an air crash. And I think that was the first significant sense of loss. And then decades go by, and life takes you through its usual course of meetings and partings of all kinds. And I think all of it makes this question come up. Who am I? Where do I belong? Who belongs to me? Do I belong to myself? Do I belong to the cosmos? Just core questions of existence. And I think those questions had begun for me subterraneanly, subconsciously, much before 2002, much before the Godhra event, and the overt trigger to search for an answer for something. So, I remember being in villages in Kutch and in other places in Gujarat, being drawn to this poetry, hearing folk mandlis sing it, hearing snatches of this poetry, not really understanding it fully, but being drawn to it. So I think there are these deeper ways in which we take the turns we do in the journey of our life. Yeah.
That is really deep. And when you were talking about pain, it's like the forest fire. It needs the forest fire for something beautiful to sprout. And when you really look deep within, you feel, we don't know, but when we are in the lows and we are in the depths of pain, I think, like you said, are possibilities. We don't know the opportunities that come out of it unless we experience it. We would never know. That is so beautiful. And the state of mind. And I was so intrigued by the name of your project, Ajab Shahar. So, when I started following you, and then I went to your website and I saw the name, and I close my eyes and think about Ajab Shahar. And for me, it's like being in this mystical land. You just close your eyes and you just stand free, and you let the experiences come into you, and you become a part of that experience while you give away your energies into the universe. That's how I looked at it. So how did you come about with the name? And do talk to us. I think I would like to call it a state of mind, the Ajab Shahar. So your thoughts on that, please.
So I remember being similarly very, very struck when I heard this phrase. It comes from a Kabir song, which I heard Prahlad Tipania ji sing. Thara rang mahal mein, ajab shahar mein, आजा रे हंसा भाई, निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई, which would translate as, hey, he's calling us a Hans. We are, so in other words, he's invoking that aspect of our essence, not even personality. He is invoking our essence, which is by nature a migratory bird, which is going to fly. So he's invoking something deeper than the surface level personality. when he calls us a Hans. So he's saying, hey, Hans, why don't you come into this Rang Mahal? Rang Mahal is a colorful palace. He means our body self. He means this stage, upon which all the colors of life play out. So it's a curious invocation. He's not turning away from the colors of life. He's saying, in the colorful palace, you will discover that Nirgun Raja. Nirgun being formless, king, Raja, king, on which a beautiful Sirgun sage, mantle or a bichhona of form has been spread, which is this body self. So he is inviting us to penetrate the veil of the external personality, which we tend to identify as us. We live life getting quite caught up in satahi pehchan. Very surface level identities are what most of us cling to. For those of us who are not very casteist or extremely religious or nationalist, we still cling to other surface level identities like profession or the ways in which we can create identity and cling to it are very subtle and very jhina. So it could be the identity of being a seeker.
Wow.
That could also be a moh that you get super attached to. So he's asking us to keep investigating what are these colorful bichhonas that you keep draping yourself in and parading about in the world. Are you aware of another aspect of yourself? He's not putting down this. He's not saying that the Nirgun Raja is the be-all. No, he's saying it's a beautiful relationship between a Sirgun sage and a Nirgun Raja. So can you experience yourself in a way that is ajab, that is akat? Akat is that which cannot be brought to the tongue. That is agam, that cannot be penetrated. That is brings you into the place of uncertainty in a very healthy, wondrous way, where you suddenly feel that you don't know. You suddenly feel lighter, you feel freer. Because when we know, and we know with great certainty, life becomes so flat and boring.
Predictable.
When we don't know, when we at all moments are aware of a higher intelligence that has created all the mysteries of this world that the human mind has not been able to even scratch the surface of, like this, the creation of this human body itself is truly remarkable. This body is an Ajab Shahar because it's Gajab. I mean, it's really Gajab. So, to at all moments be aware that you don't know keeps you grounded, keeps you humble, keeps you from having very self-important, inflated, very serious agendas or self ideas about the self, which make you बहुत ज़्यादा serious and long-faced and angry with the world, or engage in sort of wasting your energies in destructive behaviors of various kinds. I'm being very broad.
Yeah. It closes you to experiences. And I have heard you say this before, that knowing leads to righteousness. Not knowing lets you discover.
And more important, not knowing leads you to compassion.
Yes.
Because compassion can only come from a place. See, if you know, you become righteous, and from that comes intolerance,
Territorial.
territoriality, intolerance, uh, inability to coexist, inability to feel the other person's pain. Whereas not knowing always keeps doors open.
Absolutely. You have worked with several artists, poets, and you have curated a lot of knowledge systems. And I guess it's such a culmination of so much of knowledge and so much of learning. And some things are easy to understand, very simply put, but many poetries, which are in different languages, you connect to the essence of it, but you really want to go deep into it and explore the embedded layers from what you want to discover. So it requires a lot of deep understanding and mental bandwidth to process that kind of literature. So what has your journey been like when you have been absorbing, understanding, and working with these artists?
Uh, so I think it's just a question of, um, what draws you. It's like I was telling my colleague the other day at office. I said, basically, only people who are lattu, just sort of a little crazy in the head, lattu about song could work in the Kabir Project. Because that's really, if you were to, if I were asked to introduce myself informally in any forum, I would say that, lattu about song, it's my primary inspiration. The other day I was singing a Baul song to some neighbors who had dropped in, and I was trying to explain the words of the song before singing it, and I was stumbling over it because I don't know Bengali. And I was telling them that I don't know Bengali, but I know the song. I know every word of the song, and it comes easily when I sing it. If I try and speak it, it doesn't come. And that's because वो गाना जो है वो दिल पे उतर गया है, लेकिन भाषा गले नहीं उतरी, गाना गले उतर गया है, so it is that I think the pull has come from the song, and especially, I should say, a song that has come from the depths of some kind of distilled authentic experience. And I think a lot of the folk songs of our country, sometimes classical songs, but I would say much more folk songs, which are distillates across centuries, being, I would say, they as they pass through the centuries, almost like endless sieves, which are taking all the faults away and making it more and more beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That some of these songs are so hauntingly beautiful, and nobody knows who composed them. They are a thread that connects you with an entire civilizational intelligence, where you know that this beauty is much vaster than you. It could not have come from one person, or if it came from one person, the person would have known something is passing through her or him. It is not hers or his. So it is this chot, what in the tradition is called Shabd ki chot. Shabd means dhwani, sound. Shabd means word as in the original sound. उस sound की जो चोट लगती है ना, then after that, working with different language traditions becomes a labor of love. So sitting day after day after day with Sindhi scholars, and not so much scholars, but Sindhi singers and gyanis, to decode the words of Shah Latif Bhitai, or to sit with Bengali friends to decode, and to sit day after day with Parvati herself to
Yes.
decode, to sit with Parvati day after day and decode the words of her songs is a joy, actually. And I really feel it's just your own particular form of madness. I think everybody has their own forms of madness. My madness is this. I remember when I was traveling for in the initial years, as a filmmaker, I was traveling in different villages and regions for almost 5 to 6 years, greedily documenting all these footage and songs and interviews. And then as a filmmaker, I would have to sit and transcribe them and plan how to edit it. I remember it took me a long time because I was getting so much fulfillment from just absorbing the songs themselves that to edit a series of films felt like an onerous task that, you know, I was feeling yahi trupti ho rahi hai, you know.
Gratitude.
And I remember at that stage, one time even journaling this, saying, uh, I think I'm a little mad. I don't know if these films are going to communicate with people. Maybe only I find this very interesting. And I also remember journaling that you can't choose your passions. Your passions choose you, you know. It is not volitional, you know. It's not like I choose to go lattu over this. It's like falling in love,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And the other day, I was telling my friend that, my memory is so bad. I'm forgetting names. I forget people's faces. I forget names of places I've been to. She said, Shabnam, just let it be. Your memory is just fine. It's just super selective. How do you remember the words to over 100 or 200 songs? And I thought about it and I said, she's right. My faculties are absolutely alive when it comes to songs. So it's really lattu about song, really. I have no other answer.
So when you say Lattu, I want to say, take me to your project. I would. This is something that I go
Yeah.
Lattu over to. Coming back to the Kabir project itself, and I mean, just kind of drawing inference to the Bhakti movement that started early on in the 6th, 7th century, with so many poets and saints from different demographics, necessarily teaching the same things very simply: live your life right, do not do anything wrong, don't cheat, don't kill. Um, when we listen to these things, and there is that we talk about had and unhad, and although we do live in a prosaic world, there is that combination of poetry, communicative music that takes us to another state of mind, like when Kumar Gandharva sings Sunta Hai Gurgyani. Every single time, each time I hear it, I feel differently, and each time I tear up listening to that song. It's almost like the person takes a form of that song and renders it, nurtures it, builds it, and it becomes his own version. The song becomes that person's. So when I watch you sing, I forget everything and I experience these goosebumps moments. So talking about sound, what is the power of that sound? And tell us personally how you connect with it, and what is your experience?
So, I want to say a few things here. I feel the message of the bhaktas, the Sufis, the Bauls, is, while it is about oneness and love, uh, it is very radically so. It's not a feel good place. It's a feel uncomfortable place. And I feel that stressing that is important. Uh, Let me put it this way. I feel the meanings of this poetry and music. I'll talk about the importance of sound a little later, but I really want to speak about this. I feel that we are all gifted with moments and ways to be transported, where we float off into another space, into another dimension, what people call an out-of-body experience, what makes you close your eyes. But I feel the tougher challenge is to bring that quality of loss of self. When we lose ourselves, essentially what is happening, we are experiencing a sense of oneness with all of reality. There is no division. There is no even sense of this is me. आप बेखुदी हो जाती है ना? That's what being transported does. You lose your sense of self. And when you lose your sense of self, how can you have any divides, right? You can't say, I'm this and not that. You've merged with reality, right? I believe the bigger challenge for us is to touch this moment of transportation, if you will, in all moments of our lives. Because otherwise, शमशान वैराग्य जिसको कहते हैं, वो तो सबको होता है. You know, you face a loss and then suddenly you see what is the meaning of life. उसको शमशान वैराग्य कहते हैं. फिर थोड़ी देर बाद वापस अपनी पुरानी आदतों में of feeling petty, feeling kit, why is my neighbor doing this, why is Pakistan doing this, why is these people need to be thrown out of here, why are they eating meat, why is this kind of attitude. तब कहाँ जाता है हमारा वैराग्य? तब कहाँ जाता है हमारा being transported and feeling a great sense of oneness with all of divinity? Then how come we become so petty, so clingy, so attached to ideas, identity, ideologies? So to be in a state of transportation, in a sense, at all moments, is what the bhakta, the Sufi, the Baul will demand of you. So it's not a feel-good space. It's a space where Kabir will say, burn down your house. Kabira Khada Bazaar Mein liye lo kaathiye haath, jo ghar ja re aap na chale hamare saath. He's saying, burn down your house and then walk with me. So the Sufis and the Bhaktas are pushing you out of comfort zones, not pushing you into feel-good zones. So this is the challenge, to gain freedom from the prison of the self. To be truly free. Not free from one and tied in the other. Not putting one down and then subscribing to another. Not, as Kabir would say, bandhe ko bandha mila. Chhute kaun upay? One tied man meets another. Who will set who free? Bandhe ko bandha mila. Chhute kaun upay? It's like, okay, you could apply this immediately to, say, religious conversions. Bandhe ko bandha mil raha hai. Both are tied. Okay? Chhute kaun upay? Kar bandgi nirbandh ki. वो पल में लेगा छुड़ाए. Kabir is saying, bow to the unfettered one. Kar bandgi, bow your head, nirbandh ki, jo nirbandh hai, who is not tied to any framework. Pal mein lega chhudaye. Then you will be free. So that is really, I feel, when we speak about this Ajab Shahar, the temptation is to float away into one space far away from the kachpach of the world. But I think to always be in a state of non-attachment in that sense, even when you are in the world, is what will make you a true leader, is what will make you a person whose actions will leave lasting change in society. It is what will make you a person who will truly become capable of love. So that I feel is really important. Otherwise, there is there's a lot of hype around, it's like sometimes hum satsang mein baiठते हैं and even before you've started singing the song, some people are already floating off, we have to ask ourselves, is the satsang space an escape? How are you when you return home? So, parkho. Aathon peher hoshiyar ji, Kabir says. You have to be hoshiyar aathon peher. So that is what I wanted to say about the state of ajabness. It is not separate from ordinary life. And the second thing you were asking about was the importance of sound, right? So my feeling is that sound has a capacity to dissolve borders in very powerful ways. Because if you don't want a visual stimulus to hit you, you can shut your eyes. But you can't close your ears with such felicity. Sound penetrates, right? If I'm seeing a painting, or no, let me put it this way, that sound becomes part of your body much more viscerally, much more intimately than does the faculty of sight, maybe. So to feel when you sing or you play, my body is already part of the vibrations are in my body already. So I become, the borders between us dissolve. So I feel sound has that capacity of penetrating borders, breaching them. And in that sense, maybe connecting us to each other, maybe. I don't know.
I was reading this book of Hazrat Inayat Khan recently, and
Yes.
he talks about how sound is free form. And he says that is why music is a divine art form, not putting the other art forms down, painting, tons of things, poetry, lyrics. But sound is free. It just like you said, it becomes a part of you. And I think the person that is singing has that aura already that you kind of absorb from that person. So, and there are so many ways to communicate a certain thought or a concept, right, Shabnam? And definitely music is a powerful one.
Yeah.
So talking about music itself, has that been your vehicle of communication? And what do you feel about music? And just wanted to know.
No, I think that's a very germane question for me, because I think I have started out being a journalist, a writer through journalism. Then I moved to film, and then singing, kind of without really my planning it, claimed me, and I found myself singing. And I think singing has been a blessing for me in many ways, because I find that singing is a very here and now form, right? जैसे कुमार गंधर्व कहा करते थे, मैं सबसे नश्वर कला का साधक हूँ. I am the seeker or a practitioner of the most ephemeral art form, because a song arises in a moment and it dies. Of course, you can record it and all of that, but it's not as frozen as, say, architecture or film or writing or painting. It arises in the moment and it dissolves. And I think in that sense, it's very good for a person like me who tends to be uh, over prepared, anxious as a creative soul, doing too much research, leaving no stone unturned, and doing these mega projects, which then finally I offer as, perfected forms to the. That's my personality. Singing challenges that, because it demands of me to be here and now, full of flaws, and just offer myself as I am, vulnerable. you know. So it brings me into the body. It rescues me from too much thought. It takes me into, so it's a very immediate and heartwarming way of offering something of yourself to another person, and to feel that energy right back there and then. You make a film, you write a book, yes, that energy loops back much later. But with a song, there is instantly that light that you can see in a listener's eyes, or a person who is inspired then to join you in song.
Just close their eyes and experience it. The other thing that I wanted to, leading to the next question probably is how our Indian music is so heavily based on lyrics and a communicative form, but they still say that music begins where words end. So, what is your thought on that? What do you think about it?
So I would say that even good poetry begins where the words end, in a sense. The the words come together in a way that they immediately point to something beyond them. No, they stir up an experience that immediately cannot be housed in just those words. It's taking you somewhere else, and uh, I guess the same is true of pure sound or pure music, even without the words. But for me personally, I can see the power of both. I don't think one needs to necessarily put down one or the other and say that this is more powerful or that is more powerful. My work keeps me so closely engaged with a vast body of performative poetry in the form of folk music, Sufi music, where the lyrics and the message of the poetry or the evocations of the poetry are as important as the music. But curiously, when I wake up in the morning and I want to start doing any pranayam or yoga or meditation, I put on Dhrupad music,
Ah,
which is completely beyond its lyrics. It's taking you into a space that is even more beyond words. So I think there is a place for everything. Uh, uh, there is a place for pure sound, pure music, pure voice, just sur, and there is a place for them coming together with such evocative words that they can hit you in a way that nothing else can.
true,
They can dissolve your whole sense of self.
true. Um, you were just talking about working with several folk art forms and many people that you interact on a daily basis for very many number of years.
Right.
Just curious to know some experiences. There are so many, it's too many to list, but some experiences that stand out that you wanted to share that made a
Vis-a-vis
difference.
experiences with singers.
Yes.
Okay, there are so many, but the one that immediately is coming to mind right now is meeting Fariduddin Ayaz, the Qawwal in Karachi, who features in the film Had Anhad. And there is this scene in which he is singing tu, 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 you know, tu hi tu. Okay, he's invoking a divinity outside of himself, and he's going tu, 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 and then he starts doing tu, 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 and he starts pointing to himself. And initially I thought, and he would do this a lot in his Qawwali, where he would sing a doha of Kabir's which says, had had tape so auliya, behad tape so peer, had anhad dono tape, wako naam fakir. And then he would point to himself, fakir. And initially I thought, so arrogant, you know. He's claiming being a fakir, being that divinity with so much arrogant assurance. And later I realized something, maybe because I started singing myself. I realized something. I realized that there is something, the praxis of poetry is that in the performance of poetry, its truth comes alive. You know, it's like, unless it is performed and unless it is sung, its truth is not manifest or radiated into the world. And I believe that when Farid Ayaz is singing tu, he has actually ceased to be Farid Ayaz. He has become a vessel for the poetry. Like, he's become Kabir in that moment. He's become the poet who's singing it. And it is a reflection not so much of arrogance, because he's not pointing to Farid Ayaz when he does that. He's pointing to the vessel that has brought that poetry alive, you know, which in that moment becomes touched with some kind of identity or experience of the self that is freer than certainly Farid Ayaz is. You are freer than Deepa when you sing. Deepa is a much more limited soul. But when you sing, you break free of Deepa. So this is something I realized once I started singing, that if not always, you can sing, and there are ways and ways of singing, but sometimes when you sing, it frees you.
It does. Very transcendental kind of a moment. As you were talking about this experience, I was thinking, these are the moments, these are the experiences that teach us so many things. And that kind of leads me to think about the Guru Shishya Parampara, like how we have in classical music. You traditionally learn from a Guru, and Guru Shishya Parampara is also something that is beyond just a Guru and a Shishya. There's so much to being a student or a disciple and following a Guru. We learn that traditionally, but again, we were talking about folk music, where you said that, you know, through centuries it has happened and it has gone through several filters, and each time based on a societal construct or the demographic or based on what is happening at that point in time, it assumes that form. So, question about Guru. What the importance of a Guru, and like, Guru does not have to be an external person. It can be our own self, an inner compass. Like the navigation system from within. So your ideas about Guru and something of that nature.
Similar to what I was talking about earlier, where I said that as an artist, as a singer, you can sometimes lose the sense of self and realize that you are only a channel. You are only a channel for the song, you are a channel for the idea, you are a channel for the poem, you're a channel for the film. Whatever is coming from you, it's really not you. You are connecting to a species essence, in a sense, and that is expressing itself through you. In much the same way, I believe sometimes the energies of life sort of move into position in such a way that a certain exchange or a exchange of knowledge and insight happens between two souls, between two people also, um, an external human being and you. And I feel it's also a very fragile connection, because very soon you move out of orbit and that electricity is no longer there. And something that led to a channel forming where something transmitted, the two of you together became a channel for something that was much bigger than both the guru and you.
Wow. Wow.
You know? And then it's gone, because ultimately either your small self or the guru's small self personalities emerge, and the moment a personality emerges, you shut off that channel and the connection snaps. So I think in life you are always being presented with possible electrical circuits, you know, where something can be transmitted to you through you. And you are absolutely right. It is also your internal compass. So to be tuned to your own self is also not something easy to do. It's not easy to be connected with yourself. And when you are connected with yourself, how rewarding that is. Suddenly things begin to flow. It's like a connect, exactly, that circuitry matches and the current begins to flow. So to be alert to all the incidents and people in your life as potential gurus, including people who irritate you, people who run you down, people who make your life miserable. They are also your gurus, because they are showing you something that you are unwilling to see very often. All negative events are gurus. They're showing you something about yourself. And if you are not able to receive that, it'll keep coming back to you in newer and newer forms till you receive that thing that life is asking you to receive. So this being alert and aware about the emergent, it's a kind of philosophy that you could say is similar to the philosophy of Sahaj. Sahaj is simple, natural, in the flow, no contrivance, no effort, no egoic effort, no egoic will. It's a surrender of egoic will that allows that something which is wanting to emerge, that allows that something which is wanting to be born, that allows nature to do its work through you, rather than your egoic will, stamp, authority, control. It's like Sahir Ludhianvi's song, which has moved me repeatedly throughout my life, which is Man re tu kahe na dheer dhare.
Yes.
इस जीवन की चढ़ती ढलती धूप को किसने बांधा, रूप पे किसने पहरे डाले,
रंग को किसने बांधा,
रंग को किसने बांधा. This is Sahir is speaking about your egoic will, where you try to exert control and you try to control things in life, and they never can be controlled. Everything is out of your control. So kahe tu jatan kare, man re kahe na dheer dhare. So I think it's all about that. To be receptive to the guru is about that alertness.
So beautiful. It also helps us identify the things that are not working for us. When we talk about um, somebody who we do not connect with, or something that is not working well, and you look at that person and you say, okay, right, I have a part of me, I can identify it. So this is something I need to unlearn. So that also becomes a part of a teaching in some form or the other. Um, we were earlier talking about, you said the Vairagya, and you were talking about how it can be a very transitory thing, and then we fall back into the mundane and the routine. So just to kind of, it's a very difficult task to be in that state of mind all the time, but one can always try. So what are the forms that one can engage in to be more self-aware?
To use a buzzword from today, that's what mindfulness is all about. To be always watching yourself. Let me tell you a story I just heard. Sita's father, King Janak, um, was asleep one day, and suddenly he was woken up by his courtiers saying the enemy is at the door and our kingdom is under siege. So Janak leaps out of his bed, puts on his armor, gets onto his horse, and leads his army into battle. And he's resoundingly defeated. Okay. And his family is taken captive, his kingdom is taken over, and he escapes on his horse. And he runs, gallops for 3 nights and 3 days, lonely, hungry, isolated, thirsty, without kingdom, without family. It's all over for him. And then he comes back to the margins of his own city, his own kingdom, and he sees कि कहीं लंगर लगा है, you know. And he's so thirsty and hungry, he gets into queue, shrouding his face. And when he comes up to the head of the queue, because if he reveals his face, the enemies will capture him because he's the king. So he's hidden his face and he reaches the top of the queue. He's so hungry. And just as he reaches the top of the queue, khana khatam. There's no food left. So he begins to grovel and he says, I'm so hungry, please help me out. So the fellow dishing it out has some compassion. So he really takes out the dregs from the cauldron and comes up with half a spoon of gruel and gives it to the king. And as the king is putting it in his mouth, an eagle swoops down, grabs the food, and it scatters in the dust. Now the king is so helpless and so driven to complete despair. At that time, he wakes up and he realizes this was a dream. Or rather, he becomes delirious. He says, was that a dream? Or is this a dream that I'm going to wake up from? What I am in? And he starts becoming delirious. Was that a dream or is this a dream? And his family gathers around him. His courtiers gather and they say, King, you are safe. Your family is here. Your wealth is here. Your possessions are here. He says, no, what if this is a dream that I will wake up from? And he's so confused and he's delirious. Everybody's so worried. And they call all the yogis and sages to counsel him. Nothing works. And then Ashtavakra yogi walks in. And he says to the king, King, hear me. That which you saw was a dream. It was impermanent and it ended. This that you are in is also a dream. It is impermanent and it shall end. Then what is the truth? What is not a dream? And he says, वो जो उसे देखता है, वो जो इसे देखता है, और वो जो आगे देखेगा, वो सत्य है. So, apparently this becomes the Ashtavakra Gita, this discourse on the nature of reality. So, to loop back to your question, I think this is what the practice of mindfulness is. To always have a drishta bhav, no? To always be watchful. One part of you is always watching. You are never given over 100% into your actions. You do what you have to do, but then you also watch. And that's the only place of reality. Because what you are engaged in is ephemeral. It is not the vessel of the शाश्वत एक तरह से.
A lot of goosebumps moments and so much of learning talking to you. If it's okay, may I please request you to sing something too?
Sure. Maybe I'll sing Rang Mahal.
Oh, sure.
And you want to sing along?
Yes, I'd love to.
बंधे को भंदा मिला वो 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 बंधे को बंधा मिला छूटे कौन उपाय कर बंदगी निर्बंध की पल में लेगा छुड़ाए थारा रंग महल में अजब शहर में आजा रे हंसा भाई निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई यहाँ सिरगुण सेज बिछाई थारा रंग महल में
थारा रंग महल में
अजब शहर में
अजब शहर में
आजा रे हंसा भाई
आजा रे हंसा भाई
निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई
निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई
आहा हा हा सिरगुण सेज बिछाई
हा 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 सिरगुण सेज बिछाई
अरे थारा रंग महल में अजब शहर में आजा रे हंसा भाई निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई ओ हो सिरगुण सेज बिछाई अरे हरे भाई मंदारिया में देव नाही झालर कूटे गरज कसी अरे हरे भाई मंदारिया में देव नाही झालर कूटे गरज कसी हीना रंग महल में अजब शहर में आजा रे हंसा भाई निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई यहाँ सिरगुण सेज बिछाई हीना रंग महल में अजब शहर में आजा रे हंसा भाई निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई यहाँ सिरगुण सेज बिछाई अरे हरे अजब शहर में आजा रे हंसा भाई, निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई, आहा हा हा सिरगुण सेज बिछाई। अरे हरे भाई बेहद की तो गम नहीं, नूगरा से सैन कसी। अरे हरे भाई बेहद की तो गम नहीं, नूगरा से सैन कसी। बिना रंग महल में अजब शहर में आजा रे हंसा भाई, निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई, आहा हा हा सिरगुण सेज बिछाई। अरे हरे भाई अमृत पियाला भर पाओ भाई, ला सर भ्रांत सी। अरे हरे भाई अमृत पियाला भर पाओ भाई, ला सर भ्रांत सी। तारा रंग महल में अजब शहर में आजा रे हंसा भाई, निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई, ओ हो सिरगुण सेज बिछाई, आहा हा सिरगुण सेज बिछाई। अरे हरे भाई काहे कबीर विचार सैन मही सैन मिली। अरे हरे भाई काहे कबीर विचार सैन मही सैन मिली। तारा रंग महल में अजब शहर में आजा रे हंसा भाई, निर्गुण राजा पे सिरगुण सेज बिछाई, ओ हो सिरगुण सेज बिछाई, आहा हा हा सिरगुण सेज बिछाई, आहा हा हा सिरगुण सेज बिछाई।
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shabnam. Really, it has been such a wonderful experience, something that will stay with me for the rest of my life, talking to you, listening to you sing. It's been such a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming to the Raaga Room.
My pleasure. Thank you for pursuing me and having the patience despite all my date shifts.
Not a
And
problem.
making this happen. Thank you so much.
Not at all. It's really, I can't, I mean, there are some things that you can't really express. This is something like that for me. So it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Thanks.